Shapeshift your life, it's your time in the light. Future is bright, we begin inside. Shapeshift your life, it's your time in the light. You can't run, you can't hide. Claim your birthright. Are you ready to shine?
Welcome back, Shapeshifters, to another exciting episode of Shapeshift Your Life podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something a little bit differently, specifically gentrification in Mexico City. Now, today I'm going to talk about my own personal experience with gentrification in Mexico City. So again, this is my personal experience. This is not a broad stroke overview of anyone else's experience, but I did want to share. And also so this is just my personal experience in Mexico City with gentrification. And later on this month, I'm currently putting together a really powerful panel discussion with other Black folks from the diaspora who have relocated to Mexico City. And we're going to sit down and talk with some local folks who are Mexican, who live here as well, and just exchange and just engage in some cross-cultural dialogue. So that's going to be really powerful, and stay tuned. But first, I wanted to just kind of kick off this little series with my own experience. So let's get into it. So many of you may or not know that I relocated to Mexico City from Oakland, California 3.5 years ago. It's almost 4 years that I've been living here. I have permanent residency here. It was very important for me to apply for permanent residency here because I was relocating, and I definitely wanted to immerse myself in this community and in this culture. I also moved here at the time with my child, who was 15 turning 16, my daughter. So I wasn't coming here to be a tourist. I was really coming here to build a new life, and build a new life with my family. And, family matters, and with my family. And so that is with my family. And so that is other. And so I relocated here with my family. And I think everyone would agree that when you are doing anything with your family, you're serious. This is a place I really wanted to be. My daughter also has the same residency status as me. It's also worth noting that I moved from Oakland, California. Specifically, West Oakland was one of the last places that I was living in. I'm originally from Deep East Oakland, California. And if any of you know anything about the Bay Area, you know that the Bay Area in many ways has been the core, has been the center of gentrification. I believe in many ways, California always is the future messenger of what we're going to see in other parts of America and other parts of the world. And so because of the tech industry, the influx of tech companies, Oakland and San Francisco literally were changed over a course of a 5 to 10 year span. We saw new roads being built. We saw neighborhoods being renamed. We saw cities literally being renamed. At one point, there were parts of West Oakland that they were calling like East San Francisco, right? Suddenly, the streets are getting cleaned up. All those neighborhood improvement is happening. There's a new investment in the arts, and the city is just vibrant. And it became really clear to us locals that the changes that were being made in the city were not for us. They were for the new demographic of tech entrepreneurs who were making 6-figure salaries, right? Who were able to come in and pay 6 months advance notice for rent, who were able to, put cash down, and really locals couldn't compete with the increase in prices, with the increase in prices, particularly as it relates to housing. You also had a lot of landlords who had been sitting on properties, maybe not able to attract, who have been sitting on properties, not able to attract that same amount of money. And so they were ready to cash out to the highest bidder. And so we saw rent prices skyrocket. And as a result of that, a huge exodus has been happening out of the Bay Area, out of California in general, actually, particularly as it relates to people of African descent. There's other factors that need to be noted in terms of all major cities in America right now. We are seeing the same impacts of gentrification. We are seeing rising rents. We are seeing local people being forced out. We are also, what will eventually be documented, seeing the third migration of Africans in America, migrating to the South, out of the cities, out of the city centers, because we no longer can afford to live there, or some people just want a better life, right? For me, I actually could afford to live in Oakland, California. However, my quality of life, right? The amount of money that I was paying for rent, paying for groceries, paying for utilities, paying for car insurance, paying just to live my day-to-day life, and paying just to live my day-to-day life, when I factor that into the quality of life, the grind that I was living on, the fact that the streets were filthy, that they were overrun by homeless people, that crime was skyrocketing, particularly during COVID and after the George Floyd uprisings, which were major in my city. It literally was like, after those uprisings, our city was destroyed. There were many businesses that were looted during and after the George Floyd uprisings that did result in a lot of violence and damage to properties. Our downtown corridor was basically destroyed and closed, right? Partly because some of the businesses were looted and boarded up, and also because it was COVID and we were in the middle of a global pandemic. And so if you were not an essential business, you had to close. And so literally I saw my city, which even in the midst of gentrification in 2019 had become so vibrant. It was alive. The Black Panther movie started in Oakland, California. We were seeing a resurgence of arts and culture, and, communities were demanding community benefits agreements, and there was still a vibrancy in the city. And literally by 2020 and the end of those uprisings, everything just drastically changed. And I really feel like my city went to sleep and never quite woke back up, right? Many of those businesses were not able to reopen fully. And if they did reopen, they opened for a short time and just couldn't withstand the strains of the global pandemic and being closed for so long. Many of those businesses, people didn't go back to work because everything was remote. One of those workers that I didn't have an office to go back to, and I still don't to this day. Crime never changed. And if anything, it felt like it got worse in terms of the amount of crime and poverty. The homelessness really just spread out. Garbage, it got dirtier. And it was just like, what the hell is going on? And everything was closed down. And so I made the decision after a vacation to Mexico. Again, Mexico is a place that I've been traveling my whole life. My high school was half Mexican. I grew up going to Mexico, is a place I had traveled to my whole life. California has a long, long history of Mexican and African American solidarity, and I'm a child of that solidarity. So when in my hood in Deep East Oakland, it was Black folks and it was Mexican. When I went to high school, in a all Mexican neighborhood, and my high school was half Mexican and half Black. There was always a tremendous amount of solidarity. Even if you take it back to the Black Panther Party, we had the Brown Berets. When we look at folks like Cesar Chavez and the farm workers strike, there was always a unity amongst Black and brown people. When I go and visit my mother to this day, our neighbors are Mexican. They're super tight with our family. Growing up around Mexican culture, even though I didn't really think of it as Mexican culture, I thought of it really just as Bay Area culture. We all dress the same. We listen to a lot of the same music. Obviously we were exchanging our different cultural foods with each other, but overall it was love. It was love, it was solidarity, and it was family. And I'm not even going to start on all the Blaxican children that are my friends, my colleagues, just a lot of interracial couples and families that are Black and Mexican. So that was my experience with Mexican culture before I even came to Mexico. So moving to Mexico City was familiar. The foods were familiar. The language was familiar, right? Everyone in California speaks a little bit of Spanglish. California was Mexico. Our cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, they come from Mexican words and Spanish, they come from the Spanish language. So the history of the United States, the history of Mexico are inextricably tied together. And then when we jump over to Mexico and we think about the African presence and the African tradition in Mexico, we know that one of the oldest civilizations in Mexico was the Olmec culture. We know that the Olmec people were of African descent. We know that Mexico actually freed their slaves and ended chattel slavery before America. And there was a Southern Underground Railroad where many Africans escaping chattel slavery from states like Louisiana and Texas actually crossed over the Gulf into Mexico. We know that there were also many Africans that were brought to Mexico, Afro-Mexicans in places like Oaxaca and there's in Guerrero, and there is still a tremendous amount of people of African descent living in Mexico to this day. One of the first presidents of Mexico was of African descent. And so again, there is just a tremendous amount of not only the histories of the United States and Mexico being inextricably tied, but the history of African people and African migration and African lineage and civilization, that there has always been a relationship with people of African descent and this land. Beyond borders, right? That before colonization, it was just a lot of different tribes and tribes were able to migrate. And that doesn't take anything away from the indigenous people that are not of African descent that also have a strong lineage to this land. But it's also to name and be very clear about history. So fast forward to 2021, I being just kind of fed up with America, kind of done with the lockdown, decided. So fast forward to the end of 2020, I decided that I was going to take an extended vacation to Mexico, really had the opportunity, and I went to Merida at the time. So fast forward to 2020, after being from March. So fast forward to 2020, I had been on lockdown in California for a number of months. I just wanted to, get away for a moment. Mexico was one of the few countries that remained open during the pandemic. And that's also worth noting because that's one of the reasons that there was such a large influx of people from all over the world. At one point during the global pandemic, Mexico and Tanzania were literally the only countries that had visa-free entry, no COVID testing. They were basically continued to keep their borders open when many places had kept their borders closed. And as a result of that, many digital nomads, many people who had been living all over the world. I mean, I had friends who had literally were living in China during the pandemic, and China closed its borders and they couldn't go back to China. And so, and this was an African-American woman. And so they came to Mexico. A lot of people came because they didn't want to go back to America. It was one of the few places that still remained open. So in December of 2020, I went to Merida, Mexico on an extended vacation. And by this time, I've been coming to Mexico my entire life. When I was a child, we would take road trips down to Tijuana. This is when you didn't even need a passport or ID. You just drove across the border. I have been to other more vacation-y towns in Mexico. I had never been to Merida. I was working remotely at the time. My daughter was going to school remotely, and I'd always wanted to live abroad. And at that point, I looked around and I thought, wow, this place is really checking off a lot of my boxes. I love the people. I love the culture. I love the land. It's familiar. The time zone works. The price points were working for my pocket. The lifestyle felt more open and expansive. I really appreciated how family oriented the place was. My daughter really enjoyed it. And I said, you know what? This is a place that I would consider living. And when I went back to America, my whole life changed. I ended up having to unexpectedly move. And at the time I was facing a $10,000 move, really, like, you want a 2-bedroom. Well, that's $3,000. You pay first, last, and security, $10,000, $9,000, right? You get a moving truck, you at $10,000, So it was like, I'm about to drop $10,000 to live in a place that I'm not feeling. I'm not resonating. I'm not feeling connected to. I'm not feeling vibrant. This place is not bringing the best of me, allowing my power, a place that just didn't feel resonant anymore with the Oakland that I knew, with the Oakland that I had fell in love with the Oakland that my daughter was born in, the Oakland that raised me. It just wasn't giving that anymore. And so I made the decision that I wanted to relocate. And so I'm part of a wave of folks, again, from all over the world, not just America, Canada, Europe, that landed in Mexico City and decided to call it home. and decided to build a life here and decided to bring my family here to build that life. And obviously, my blue passport gives me a tremendous amount of privilege. Sometimes I joke that Black people don't even recognize their privilege until they leave America, that our blue passport gives us a level of privilege. And so obviously the fact that I'm earning an American salary and that I have the privilege of what it means to walk into the world, the positionality, I should say, of what it means to walk in the world as an American allowed me to come here and live in a very, nice apartment, afforded me a very amazing lifestyle for myself and for my daughter. It gave me a level of purchasing power that I did not have in America. And most importantly, it gave me a lifestyle that I did not have in America, where, as my sister Janice says, it's like my shoulders dropped, my nervous system reset. I could afford healthcare. I could walk down the street and go to a park that was clean. I could eat amazingly healthy food that was affordable. I didn't live in a food desert. I didn't even have to get in my car to go anywhere. I could walk most places. And for me, and again, this whole episode is about my personal experience, I have gotten nothing but love from this country. I have been welcomed. I have been appreciated. I have felt nothing but love and genuine welcome. Now, that doesn't mean that that's true, but that's what I have felt. And again, I can name countless examples, and this is something that we are going to talk about when we bring our panel together, of other Africans of the diaspora who live here who have not had that same experience, right? So in no way do I want to act like my experience is the experience of Black people. We are not a monolith. And I also did not go to the neighborhoods of La Roma and Condesa, but I did live in a neighborhood. I also didn't move to La Roma and Condesa, which are two of the neighborhoods that have really been saturated by foreigners and Americans. And again, because I'm from Oakland, California, a city of social justice, a city of political resistance, a city that is not afraid to speak truth to power, a city that is the birthplace of the Black Panther Party, a city that had a history of solidarity with people of global solidarity with people all over the world, including Mexico. I didn't come here with an arrogance. I came here humble. I don't use the word expat. I understand very clearly I'm an immigrant. And the reality is, although there are some bad apples, I don't really feel that Black people have the privilege of just spinning a globe and deciding that they want to go anywhere in the world and then being arrogant and being entitled. It's not safe, because at the end of the day, we're still Black. And anti-Blackness is global. Anti-Blackness exists everywhere in the world, even in African countries, and I've been to several. So anti-Blackness perpetuates every single aspect of our life, and it's part of the patriarchal capitalistic system that we live in, and Mexico is no different. So in moving to CDMX, soon you started hearing rumblings of what the fuck? Why are all these fucking foreigners in these neighborhoods? Now the prices have gone up, right? I saw my own landlord try to jack up the prices on me and my rent. As soon as you folks know you're American, the price changes, right? And we didn't move here for that. We want to get the same price as locals do. But again, just like when I was in Oakland, California, and they now know that there's people who work for Twitter and Google who want to rent their apartments here, now that they know that they're Americans who want to rent their apartments, the price is going up. It also should be noted that the neighborhoods of La Roma and Condesa, which have become very overrun by tourists, you could say, or a lot more foreigners live there, were never affordable neighborhoods for the average Mexican person. They always had a level of affluence to them. And so all of the impacts of the fact that rents have gone up, the fact that we now are living in a society where everything just costs more. Everything costs more everywhere in the world. Prices just went up. It really hit a boiling point, and that boiling point really came to a head on July 4th, 2025, in one of the largest, not the only protests. And that many people said it was the first protest against gentrification. That's actually not true. There have been several protests against gentrification as of late, and particularly from 2021, when I first moved here, to now 2025, Rents have gone up tremendously all across the city, and prices have gone up all across the city. And so a group of organizers came together and they held what I would say was one of the largest protests around gentrification that had occurred. And what many people don't know is that, and funny enough, it should be worth noting that it was on July 4th, which I just think was just I think it was just really cool that it was on American independence. Now, let me also say, 2 weeks ago, I was home in my city of Oakland, California, a city which is now part of, I was at home for work in Oakland, California. California, a state that is literally being besieged by ICE raids. I can't tell you the amount of videos that I saw online, not only in Los Angeles, but even in my own local neighborhood of Oakland, of ICE being at the grocery store and being at different malls and folks literally being kidnapped by ICE. No due process, no humanitarianism, no humanism, just literally an othering and a criminalization of some people who are actual American citizens. California owes a tremendous debt to the sacrifices that Mexican people have made for generations. So when this protest occurred, it was at a high tension moment where Mexicans in Mexico are being deported, they're being kidnapped, they're being thrown into ICE detention centers. Some of them are self-deporting, and they are now finding themselves literally not feeling safe. And Mexicans in Mexico are watching all of that at a time where rents are at an all-time high. And when there's people who are coming here, and I'm going to just say it, who ain't got no damn home training, who don't want to speak the language, who don't even attempt to speak the language, who treat local people like they're better than them and that somehow these people are here to serve you, and are just flat out disrespectful. And I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes. And frankly, it's embarrassing. And it's to the point where a lot of times, even though I technically am a gringo, I guess I'm a gringo because I'm from America, even though I don't consider myself a gringo, I'm embarrassed. I look at these people and I'm like, oh God, why are the Americans the most obnoxious people in the room? Why are we the loudest people in the room? Why are we so not self-aware, right? There's many immigrants here, and it's worth stating that. There's a massive Chinese population in Mexico City. These folks own property. They own tons of shops in the Centro area, and there has been protests against the fact that many local shopkeepers feel that they're being displaced because of the Chinese community. There is a tremendous amount of Germans here. There are Canadians here. San Miguel de Allende and Lake Chapala, which is part of Guadalajara, are actually two cities in Mexico that have a larger foreigner population than they do of locals. And although there is a tremendous and has been a tremendous amount of foreigners from the Latin diaspora here, right? Folks from Honduras, folks from Ecuador, folks from Colombia, folks from Cuba. That Latin American diaspora has been in Mexico. It's really over the last 10 years where you've seen more folks from America coming in because of the COVID wave and because of the policies. When I applied for residency here, you have to start that process at a Mexican consulate in America. You have to finish that process here in the country. But because of COVID, a special program was rolled out just to support the transition of tourists becoming residents in this nation. So that has to be spoken to, that there were actual government policies that encouraged the migration of foreigners on this land. Also, the current president, who was the governor of Mexico City during COVID, signed a huge agreement with Airbnb. So obviously, like in many cities, a lot of landlords would rather Airbnb their place than have local people or even foreign people living there, because they can make more money off of Airbnb, which then makes tremendous impacts to the amount of housing supply. Also, as the largest city in the Western Hemisphere, Mexico just has a housing problem. It has a housing problem, a housing shortage, like many cities. But I am never going to be against any nation that is standing up for their own personal sovereignty and their own personal liberation. I feel like as a global citizen, as a person of African descent, I am in solidarity I'm in solidarity with any global movement that stands for the people. Sometimes you have to get people's attention. And one thing that protest clearly did is it got everybody's attention, right? People are paying attention now. And now it's about, what are we going to do with that energy? What are we going to do with that energy now that people are galvanized around this issue? And I also want to say that this is a global issue, that all around the world, people are being displaced. Prices are going up. People are being pushed out. Many of the foreigners that are here, we're here like me because we feel that we were pushed out of our communities. We did not have access to the quality of life to our communities. There is a tremendous amount of people of African descent from the diaspora here. We are not all from America. There are people Black, there are Afro-Cubanos, there are Afro-Venezuelans, there are Afro-Argentinians, there are folks from the continent in Nigeria and South Africa. There are people here from Jamaica and the Caribbean. There are Black British here. There are Black Canadians here. There are Black Americans here. And all of us are here because we were seeking a better life. And one thing that does not get said, where do Black people get to be free? Where is our home? Who is the nation state that is going to defend and ride for us? If I go to Africa, and I've been several times to multiple countries, they don't look at me like I'm African. My people have been in America for 500 years, just like there are Black people in Cuba whose family's been there for 500 years. And just like there are Black people from Jamaica whose family, but they get to be Jamaican, right? They get to be Cuban. And for whatever reason, African Americans have never received the full rights and privileges of being American. That's why I said sometimes it's not until we leave America and we have that blue passport that we actually get to receive privileges, because in America, we are brutalized, we are oppressed, we are redlined. We are the front line of gentrification. We are the largest of the prison industrial complex. We have lived through COINTELPRO. We have watched our leaders be assassinated. Like, we've been the canaries in the coal mine. Many of the cultures who are able to protest and even know what community organizing is learned many of those practices from Black liberation in America, right? So then when I come to a place like Mexico, who again has a history of Black people, but I still don't get to be home here, and I look around at my Haitian brother that moves to Mexico, and my Nigerian sister that moved to Mexico, and my Jamaican homie that's moved to Mexico, and my Cuban homie and my American homie, we're all Black people from all over the world, and we're all coming here almost as refugees in a sense, because we are fleeing the anti-Blackness of the planet just to land here and experience more anti-Blackness, right? Just to land here and be grouped up with white people and called gringo. But we're looking at these people like, them niggas ain't like us. We don't get to show up in a country with the same level of entitlement that white people do, because the reality is it's not safe. And I surely don't get to show up with a level of entitlement and arrogance with my child when I'm trying to build a family, because I'm trying to protect my child. I'm trying to create a peaceful life for my child. And so it's important that we put nuance to this conversation. And in that nuance, we also have to recognize that this is a global phenomenon of white supremacy, white psychosis, and patriarchy that is trying to create a fascist regime in America, California, in Mexico, Africa, the Caribbean, in Europe, and the 1% of billionaires is trying to create everybody into being subordinate. And so when you really think about it, we actually have the same enemy that is making Haitians have to flee their land, and Cubans have to flee their land, and Black Americans feel like they have to free their land. Is the same energy that's pushing people out of their communities here. It's the same enemy that thinks it's okay to discriminate against local people because the dollar is the true prize in all of this. And it doesn't matter how you treat people. It's all about getting paid. It's all about the dollar. It's all about capitalism. It's all about increasing wealth for people who are already hoarding billions of dollars of wealth at the expense of everybody else. That's what's going on. And unfortunately, I don't see that stopping anytime soon. And The only way that we're going to stop it is through unity and collaboration and not xenophobia and coming together and using our dollar and our privilege to speak up, to speak truth to power. And so for me, that looks like I don't go to Walmart, Office Depot, McDonald's, Burger King, Popeye's Chicken, Cheesecake Factory. I'm learning to speak Spanish. Even if I have to stumble through it, I will speak Spanish first because I am being respectful and understanding that I'm a visitor. I'm a visitor here and I have to humble myself. And I think that there's just an American arrogance that seeps in and is just extremely, extremely detrimental. And so I believe that this wake up call is important. I believe that this wake up call is needed, but I reject the notion that I'm a gentrifier. I want to invite local people. I want to invite Mexican people to be in dialogue, to be in conversation, to create bridges, to create solidarity, to build the solidarity economy, to understand that we are facing the same evil here. And it is only through coming together that we are going to solve this problem. Are there some bad apples? Are there some Americans who've come here and been a hot motherfucking mess? Absolutely not. But you know what? White people gonna white people. Have there been black people who've come here and been a hot motherfucking mess? Absolutely. Absolutely. Most of them are not necessarily residents here. Many of them are tourists. And there's always bad apples. And those bad apples are no different than my black American friends or my black friends from the diaspora here who've been profiled by the police, stopped at the airport, literally denied housing opportunities and called the N-word. Because I have friends who've had every single one of those experiences. And just as it would not be fair for us to then say all Mexican people are like this, it's not fair to say all black people are like this. But what you're not going to do is use a black woman's face as the face of gentrification and ignore all the white and Canadian people in San Miguel de Allende and Lake Chapala and act like all of a sudden we've been the problem when the problem has been going on. We're not going to do that. We're not going to make us the scapegoat because black people become the scapegoat. Black people can be easily become the target and it can become you're the reason why when honestly, we're the most oppressed people on the planet. Full stop. There are larger forces at play. I'm not here to displace anybody. In all the places that I've lived, there were not local Mexican families living in the places. There were wealthy white Mexican people owning buildings. Those are the buildings that I moved in. Every single one of my landlords has been a white Mexican man who has had a tremendous amount of privilege and a tremendous amount of spending power. And he has seen me as a dollar sign. That's just my experience. I can't speak to everybody, but I'm just saying it's not like families are getting pushed out because I moved into my apartment. That has not been my experience. So all this is to say is to prime the pump for a much, much larger conversation that I said I'm going to be hosting in a couple weeks. It's going to be an extended podcast. We're going to bring people together of African descent, of the African diaspora with locals here. And we're just going to talk and we're just going to build bridges and we're just going to continue to be in solidarity. And I'm going to continue to speak to my neighbors and I'm going to continue to speak Spanish and I'm going to continue to support the local economy and I'm going to continue to be in dialogue about this issue because it's important. And so much respect to the Mexican people, much respect to this land, much respect to the people who are organizing, who are speaking truth to power. I see you. I feel you. I'm in solidarity with you. And I'm going to reject the othering of placing any group all in the same category and saying that we're all the same because we are not. We all have different experiences and we are going to bring nuance to this conversation. Okay, so that's what I have for you today. Please let me know in the comments your experience with gentrification, how that's showing up in your city. If you have solutions, what do you think are the different things that can be done? Because at the end of the day, it takes government policy, housing regulation, like rent control, like community benefits agreement. Those government policies have to be in place to protect local people. And unfortunately, I haven't seen any government do that well. I've seen governments favor the dollar over people over and over and over again. And so we can't look to any government system to bail us out. We got to come together, build our own sovereign communities of mutual aid, of discussion, of self-determination and liberation. Power to the people. That's what I got for you now, shapeshifters. Until next time, keep shifting. Much love and light for showing up today, shapeshifters. You could be doing anything right now, and you chose to be here, and I do not take that for granted. Looking for extra support on your journey? Explore my affordable coaching programs. Whether you prefer personalized one-on-one sessions or engaging group coaching, I'm here to help you align your vision and thrive on your own terms. Visit shapeshiftyourlife.com, that's SH, the number 8, PE, shiftyourlife.com, and schedule your free shift call to discuss your coaching goals. Keep shifting.